guys, welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig. It is 9 o'clock on a Saturday, which means it's time for a Talk Magic. Now, today I'm going to be talking to one of the most respected people in the magic community. And let me explain why. There's lots of different types of magicians in the world. There's close-up magicians, there's stage magicians, and then you've got the illusionists, the people that do the big shows with the big boxes. And they don't just come out of nowhere. You can't go to your local magic shop and go and buy an incredibly made illusion. You have to go somewhere. And that's where this gentleman comes in today. He is, I would say, the premium illusion builder in the world. I mean, there's a few of them, there's not many, but this is the man that people go to again and again and again if they want their show to add wow. And you'll see why I said that in a minute. He's a great guy, an incredible person, and such a genius when it comes to what he does. I am, of course, talking about Mr. Thomas Moore. How are you doing, Thomas? You okay?
I'm really good, Craig. Thanks so much for inviting me on the podcast. I've been a fan for such a long time, and I'm finally here on it. I'm gonna geek out a little bit. So
am I, because I'm seeing every single prop that I want to own right there behind you, and we're going to talk about a couple of those at some point, if that's okay, because I know you have stories about so many different props. But you're filming this in your workshop, in your workshop makes it sound like a little shed at the bottom of the garden. Yeah. It's not. You're filming it in your massive, huge space with your team.
I am definitely massively overcompensating for something, but yes, no, we have a 10,000 square foot workshops, rehearsal space, storage facility here in Leicestershire. It is. I didn't start like this. I started in tiny little, room of a shop and garden sheds. We've built up and finally got this place. We moved here 8 years ago. And it was like, I saw this industrial unit and I thought, wouldn't it be great if? And then I found out how much it cost and I went, oh no, I can't. And then I realized, no, this is my one opportunity to really, really go for it and create the perfect factory. So here we are, this is it. We've got a full-size metal fabricating space, full-size wood fabricating space, electronic space. We've got a 3D printer farm here. We have a huge rehearsal space. We've got storage. We have everything. It's everything I always dreamed I'd have, and I finally got it.
That's amazing. And you know what? I want to delve deep into some particular things that I want to talk about. You see, a lot of the people that I talk to on this channel, they're performers. They perform at high end, and they talk about their journey into performing. You're kind of like the Q to so many people's James Bonds. In fact, I was talking to you at the Magic Circle convention before FISM, and you were saying to me, oh yeah, I've got to make a trip over to this country, and I've got to make a trip over to this country, and I've got to go here, and then I've got to be at FISM because I'm working with, and you were working with so many different acts, and you were the person that was a big part of making their FISM competition act what it is. And you're the person that's the secret behind so many people's successes. And I haven't really interviewed many people like you on this channel, where I think a lot of people that are watching this won't even know who you are. But the people that know who you are, you're probably the most important person in their Rolodex, because you're the person that can, if you get a phone call, and if somebody you work with gets a phone call saying, can you make this happen? The first person they ring is you, and you come up with a way of doing it. So it's going to be really interesting. And I want to talk about all of that. But before I do, how did you get into magic? Like, what's your origins? Did you always want to be this, or was there a time you wanted to be a performer? Like, tell me.
I have absolutely your cliched British magic origin story. 5 years old, got a Paul Daniels magic set for Christmas. Never had an interest before. Got that magic set, became completely obsessed. Was absolutely your bog standard thing of child me was obsessed with magic. I come from my family background is in circus and show business, so there is a bit of there, although I'm not actually from the branch of the family in the entertainment business. Or my grandparents, my aunts, my uncles are all in that. My branch of the family is engineering. So my father and my grandfather were all proper hardcore engineers, designing and inventing machines and mechanisms. So looking back, it was always kind of obvious, surely that's the path I was going to take. But actually, I embraced the showbiz side. And was a performing child magician. Through the late 80s and early 90s, there was a huge trend, especially in the UK, of having kids presenting on kids' TV shows. And so I had quite a nice career right up until 1995 as a presenter on CITV and on Sky TV and on various shows there as a presenter on kids TV. And I was hired mainly because I could just talk for hours. I was fearless, and I'd always got pockets full of magic. So anytime something was going wrong, they could just leave me on screen, and they knew I'd be able to just fill and vamp like crazy. So there's this whole run of shows. My parents have got VHSs of terrible, terrible regional ITV children's shows with me just, you know, with bad 90s jumpers and spiky hair, presenting and talking and filling and vamping. I did all of that.
That's really cool, though, right? That is really cool that you got a chance to do all of that.
Well, yeah, no, it's mad. I was interviewing the biggest pop stars of the day and doing all sorts of things. It was crazy in rock and roll. And then, as happens in kids TV, you discover it just stops. Just one day in kids TV, you're just not popular anymore, and that's it. So almost overnight, that stopped absolutely dead. But at that exact same moment, people like Dominic Wood and Stephen Mulhern were just coming through and breaking into kids TV as the magicians on kids TV. So quite quickly, I stopped performing, and there's a magic shop in Leicester, a place called House of Fun or B&B Magic, which is quite an important historic magic shop. When I stopped doing the presenting stuff on kids TV, they asked me to go work for them because actually they'd just been asked by Stephen Mulhern to create some material for one of his TV shows.
Oh, wow. So, and how old were you at this point?
So this was just coming up to 17-year-old me.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you've had this whole career. By the time you're 17, you've had this whole career on TV, perform magic on TV, like being like, wow. And now you're moving into, that's incredible. That's so awesome.
It's incredible. It's also soul destroying because you discover at 17 you are considered old and washed up and your career is over and you're a has-been, which is so messed up. But again, if you speak to anyone who works in kids TV, it's quite common that you just suddenly one day are considered, it doesn't trail off, it just suddenly like, boom, that's it. You're no longer good for kids TV. It's so strange.
So So at 17, you went to, I want to hear all about the Stephen Mulhern thing, but like at 17, obviously that would be when school's pretty much finishing. What was your goal? Right, okay, I want to carry on in entertainment, you know, I'm going to find something else. That may have ended, but there's something else. Or did this opportunity at this magic shop go, well, you know, I can do that while I figure out what I want to do? Like, where was your headspace at that point?
Going and working for B&B and doing the creative stuff was just a short-term summer gig. It was totally something. They'd had this specific request to create some material for these couple of shows, and there were a few other performers as well, but Stephen was the headliner one. They wanted me in because they know I just generated loads of generic TV material. So it was like, come in, work for us for a few weeks, just help develop the stuff, get it together. You know how this stuff works, and do it. And it really is one of those that we never kind of stopped. It just kept going and going because we worked really well together. The legacy of the place was quite amazing. So they had an amazing archive of historic material they'd done. I just sort of never left. I was there for 3 years working for him before I then branched off on my own. But it was never planned. There was never a grand scheme. There was never a, right, I'm going to go and be John Gorn or something. It was just like, oh yeah, no, we're going to work on this next project and this next project. And oh, now there's a Christmas theatre show coming up, so we'll do a bit of stuff for that. And it just naturally snowballed from there.
And so obviously that's where you kind of started being very creative. I mean, you were creative beforehand, but that's where you really kind of got to hone your creative skills. Did you stop performing at that point? Did you kind of go, well, okay, this is the side that I now want to work in? Or were you still kind of, you're 17, you've got all these magic skills, were you thinking, I'm going to go out and get a restaurant gig? Or like, what was going on at that point?
I was never a close-up worker. I've never been a close-up person, so that was never. If you meet me at conventions, I'm one of those people who is passionately, definitely, absolutely not doing card tricks. I am so not a close-up person. It's ridiculous. I had a little bit of a performing career that carried on. There is still a sort of modern-day version of ENSA, the entertainment branch of the military, and so through those late teen years, I was working as a host for them. They would put on variety and entertainment shows that they would send around to military bases or people stationed overseas. So right up till I was about 21, 22, I was still doing sort of a half dozen of those every year, which was always an amazing experience because you get a load of entertainers put together and shipped off somewhere and often not told where and do some shows. But I mean, it was by no means me being a full-time performer. It was me getting this fun chance to go away for weekends and have adventures. It wasn't real work at all. It was it was adventures. So again, and that ended, and I had no real passion to get any more performing gigs after that, because by the time that ended, I'd then been working on the creative side for so long that I realized that as a performer, I could only ever be working on 1 or 2 shows at a time. Whereas as a creative, I can have, I mean, literally right now, we've got 5 different shows in here right now being built, and that's the stuff being built now. There's also all the other shows we're planning, all the other shows that are currently out, and we have to go and tweak and knock up. So I get to work on so many more shows in so many more different styles now than I ever could have as a performer. I get to have all the benefits of working in all those different genres. I get to try the tricks. I get to have the wow moments. I get to see the audience response. And then I immediately get to put it down and move to another show the next day and have all those same hits again. It's much more fun.
Wow, that's really cool. So let's pick the story up. So you were working for this magic shop for 3 years, and you were working all these creative directions, and let's do this and let's do that. That's obviously really getting you passionate about the creative side of things. What made you leave after 3 years, and what was your next thing? Was your goal, right, okay, I'm going to be an illusion builder, I'm going to build huge shows? Like, was that something you were doing while you were working at the magic shop? How did you transition into, basically, what was next, and what made you decide to move on?
The magic shop was absolutely a full service traditional magic shop. They did a lot of close up, they did a lot of parlor, they did a lot of kids stuff. They were quite a big wholesale manufacturer. Again, in the 90s, if you bought a magic trick in the UK, it was almost certainly made either by Supreme Magic or by B&B Magic. They had a huge workshop and manufacturing facility. But illusions and big stage stuff was only a tiny part of their business. And I'd worked out at that point that I absolutely needed to be in the big stuff. I designed a couple of close-up tricks, but they were terrible. I designed a couple of kids' magic tricks. They were okay. But I was the big stage stuff I was designing, I was always much better received. So at that point, it was the realization that if I stayed working with them, I could plod along, but it would be some of the fun stuff and some of the not so fun stuff. So I branched out with a friend and created our own manufacturing, our own business, creating illusions and stage stuff only. And that was really the catalyst for leaving there and doing that. We left on good terms. I'm still friends with some of the people that work there. I'm still friends with the family. But it was the only way I was going to get to be able to do the stuff I truly wanted to do and not have to do any of the other items, was to just make the leap and become a guy who just designed big things.
Wow. Okay. And the company that you form with your friend is the company that you now run, right? Which is
no. So I had various, as always happens in creative businesses, you think you're going to work really well with someone, and it works great for a couple of years, and then creative differences for that. So I went through a series of partnerships. I worked with a couple of different people over the years. It kept going right through until 2011. I'd always been in partnerships with other people up till 2011. And through a combination of luck, determination, and everything else, I managed to blag a contract designing some of the key engineering for the 2012 Olympics opening ceremony.
Wow.
And that is absolutely the career boost you want it to be. As soon as you can say you designed something for an Olympic opening ceremony, that opens a lot of doors to you. And at that point, I realized I could now go it alone, and that my name alone would be enough to get future work. So at that point, I founded Thomas More Creative, which is the business I now have and run. Yeah. But it was 2011 was the first time I actually went out purely by myself in my own name. Prior to that, I'd always been going out as part of a business or as part of a team or part of something else.
Well, the problem with having a business partner is if your goals for that business and your partner's goals for the business don't mesh, it can cause conflict. And I speak as somebody that's had a business partner in the past, and I know that we ended up splitting up because he saw the business going in one direction, I saw it going in the other direction. And when you clash and you're working so closely together, that's always an issue. So yes. I mean, it's a nightmare. Okay. So it's a bit, I mean, you had the Olympic contract, which is great, but still going it on your own, because I can only imagine the expenses that goes into running something like this. Like, forget about how much you're going to be spending on the space and power and electric and whatever else. Just the amount you're spending on what you need to build these things. Like, and there's a very illusions are a very niche market insofar as I don't know the exact figures, but I'd guess only 5% of the magic community are ever, if that, are ever going to want to buy what you've got, right?
Yeah, we estimate there are about 1,000 working illusionists in the entire world. That's people who actually earn their entire living from going on stage and presenting big things to large audiences. If you start to include the people, there's a sort of crossover between stand-up magicians and illusionists, someone who does mainly a stand-up parlor set that might have a levitation or a sub-trunk at the end. When you add that, it's a bigger market. But people who actually just move giant things like this around the world and present them to audiences, it's about 1,000 on the entire planet. That's our entire market.
See, that's a very niche market, especially when you consider you're not the only illusion builder. I can think of like several in America and a couple over here in the UK and other, you're not, you compete with other people for a very small percentage of a very small industry. And yet you've been able to make a huge success out of it. So what was your strategy like from 2011? Like, I'm going to go it alone. This is going to cost me a fortune, but I'm going to make it a success. And you've got a team of people, you've got staff, like, I mean, how, what, like, I'm talking to somebody who's been running businesses for the last 20 years, and I'm equally impressed and terrified. I'm trying to put myself in your shoes in 2011. I'd be like, oh my God, like I'm so impressed with what you've pulled off. Like
the luck, stupidity, everything really. The Olympics was, I got the contract almost by fluke. I happened to submit a document for pitching something to just the right person at just the right time, who was literally walking into a meeting, and in that meeting they said, we need to do this. And this was almost exactly what I put in a pitch document to him. The Olympics was a really great thing because they actually employed me for 8 months continuously. So that was like, I was sort of coming out of that. I moved into East London. I was stationed in East London right up to the actual Olympics itself. So that paid very well and gave me the most ridiculous confidence boost. Coming out of that, I was like, I'm like 5 seconds of the opening ceremony. I am a tiny part. There are people who did way more than me, but still I was part of creating that experience and that show. I'm riding high, and that enables me to basically call anyone else and go, hey, I designed things and I've just done the Olympic ceremony, and look at it and see what you think. So a complete confidence boost out of that. And for about the next 2 years out of that, pretty much every bit of work I got was purely off the back of being able to say I was the designer who did that, because it enables the performers to then go to their bookers and go, who designs my props? Oh, it's one of the team that did an Olympic opening ceremony. And that then gets the performers booking. So that coasts it there. Once you start to get that sort of momentum, the secret then is just to keep doing it, to keep that momentum going, and the growth happens. But you have to keep the momentum going by constantly investing. If you look at every illusion designer and builder that's closed down, you can very clearly see that about 3 years before they stopped making illusions, you see they stopped investing in new technology, they stopped developing new products, they stopped expanding their space. It's the same every time. So all that's happened since then is constant reinvestment, constant pushing the envelope. We have to be at the forefront of technology at all times. We have to have the latest tools. We've got 2 huge, great CNC cutting machines here. We've got a 3D printer farm with 9 industrial 3D printers in it. It's every time these bits of technology and innovation comes along, I have to be one of the first people to get it, because it then means that we can create props and materials and shapes and things that no one else can create. And therefore that keeps us at the front, that keeps us right ahead of everyone else, being able to make props and things that just other people cannot make. And in fact, other people couldn't even consider they could make, because they don't even know that that piece of technology, that machine exists yet.
Wow. Okay, that's amazing. And that's one aspect of it. Obviously, being at the forefront of technology, having all the best tools, that's great. But there's another aspect of it, which is creativity. Now, a lot of magicians consider themselves creative. You know, they create magic tricks, they release magic tricks, but it's normally something with a pack of cards or a coin. Like the ability, like I've been creating magic since I was 18, but I don't think I could ever create an illusion. Like I wouldn't even know where to start. I'd probably go, well, hasn't everything already been done? Like how do you go into creating something that's unique? Because I'm obviously quite aware of your catalog, and I see some stuff that's just very completely different to anything I've seen before. But then I see other things where you've taken an existing concept and just made it better. The snow table is a perfect example. The your version of the, you know, the bottle in the glass
Yeah,
thing is
postulate the
the best
prediction.
version
Yeah.
of the, it's the best version of the master prediction system I've ever seen, bar none. Like, so I can see that. I can see you go, well, okay, let's do snow, but let's build it into a really thin table. I wouldn't even know where to start. I can see that. But then you've got stuff that doesn't seem to be a starting point. Could you talk about your creative process and that side of things?
Yeah, I mean, stage magic and illusions is much more of a collaborative process at every single level than close up and children's magic is. Most children's magic and most close up magicians are solo people working by themselves, directing themselves, lighting themselves, making all their own choices. Once you start working on stage, you have to be a collaborator. Even if you're just going to comedy clubs and things like that, you're going to be working with 2 or 3 technicians and lighting people just for that gig. And so everything in stage magic is about a group of people getting together and bouncing ideas off each other and collaborating. And that's at the root of all stage performance. So that means that I'm never coming into a situation completely cold. Someone doesn't just ring me up and go, I'd like a new trick that's a bit crazy, invent me something a bit crazy. That never happens. It's so an entirely collaborative process. Magicians always just coming to me with a vague concept, an idea, something crazy they've talked about with technicians, directors. They've no idea if it's possible. They've no idea if it works. They've just got that gem of a weird idea. And so they come to me with that. And that then gives me the jumping off point to develop it and create it. And at the same time, I'm working with so many different performers, but also I have all my staff here. I am buying weird stuff on Kickstarter all the time. I am going down strange YouTube rabbit holes of obscure technologies and ideas and principles. And what that means is that they give me that jumping off point, and I can then mesh that together with all the crazy things I've learned and start fleshing it out into an illusion or an effect or a creation. But it's never, ever created in a vacuum. It's always that someone has come up with something, some weird twist on the idea, and then I then get to jump off from that. And then it's just time. The teller put it perfectly that the secret of all magic tricks is that someone spent way too much time and effort creating something. And I am usually that someone. An idea will come in until we get some sort of workable effect out of it. But it's time. The worst thing you can do is come to me and say, I've got a show next week, invent something for me. The best thing you can say to me is, I've got a show in 4 months' time. I've always wanted to do something with a space hopper and a Ferrari, create something.
Wow. So I imagine there's 2 parts of your business. You know, there's the part where you create one-off custom pieces for an act, and it will literally be for that one person and that one person only. And then you have other things that you create that you have in your catalog, you have in your website, and people can go, I would like that one, please. And you'll build it for them specifically to their requirements. Like, what's the split with your business? Like, is it a 50-50 custom creations versus kind of stock pieces? And what do you prefer working on?
From a financial point of view, I would love it if it was 50-50. It is about less than 10% of what we create is the off the peg stuff, the stuff that's listed on the website. About 90% of what we do is entirely custom stuff, which artistically is very wonderful because it means I get to create so many weird and unusual different things. But from a financial point of view, it's terrible because we're doing all that research and development, all that innovation, inventing, in some cases, whole new machines to make things. And then we only get to sell one. And because these things are often covered by NDAs, often we can't even tell people that we've made it. It's quite frustrating. The number of things that we invent and make that never go on the website, never go on the socials anywhere. Find me at a convention, I'll show you a photo of it on my phone, but we can't publish it in any way because it's some top secret prop for the illusionists or some big touring show or magician somewhere. And obviously they want their entire audience base to think that they created and invented this. They don't want people to know that they went to a strange guy in Leicestershire and had it, you know, made for them.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, I can understand that. And that must be very frustrating as a business. Like, is there like is it it's 10% off the shelf stuff? Is that because like we spoke about before, it's such a niche industry and there's such a small part of that industry that are in a position where they can both use and pay for the props that you design, or is there another reason? Like,
It's a mixture. That all stage performers fall into two categories. There are the ones who are artists, who are always just wanting to create and happen to use magic as their medium to do that. So, you know, people like Ben Hart. Ben Hart could have a solid hour of material and do that for the rest of his life, but actually he chooses every year to go out and invent a completely new hour of material because he wants to create, and magic is the medium. And then there are other people who want to take a few tricks and spend their life perfecting the performance of those few tricks. So it is generally the people that want to perfect, in the same way as a singer would have 4 or 5 songs that they spend their whole life learning to sing and hit the perfect notes and get the perfect inflections. Just the same with a magician. There are some who want to have a few things and just do the hours, just keep doing them over and over and finding every nuance and perfection in what that core trick is. They're more interested in the process of developing and refining their performance of it. So those are the sort of 10%, the off-the-shelf people. Then the other 90% are the ones who, I say, people like Ben Hart, but there are hundreds of others around the world who want to create new things, who have just had this crazy idea, who would just late night after a show one day, we're chatting with the stage crew and someone made a flippant comment about, oh, I've always wanted to do a skateboard that levitates whilst also flying through a flaming hoop. And, you know, they'll have that weird, crazy idea and they'll go, wow, I've always wanted to do that too. And then weeks later, they're calling us and going, can you do this? And can we also do it surrounded with a celebrity? And off it goes.
wow. It must be a really fun, like you talked about, you know, from that 90% from a creativity point of view is great because it really makes you think outside the box. It must be a really fun job. I don't want to call it a job. It's not a job, but you know, it must be a really fun business to work in, getting a chance to do all of this and work with some of the biggest names in the industry.
Oh, it's the absolute two extremes of that experience. The fun is the developing, the playing, the having the ideas. I am a passionate Kickstarter person. I am supporting all sorts of crazy technology products on Kickstarter because that's how we find new machines and things. But that also means that pretty much every week we get a delivery here from some weird tech thing that someone's invented that we backed 6 months, a year ago, arriving. So we get constant surprises like that. We get to play and do weird, crazy things to invent things and invent whole new technologies and principles. That's amazing fun. On the other hand, at 6:30 in the evening, just before a prop is about to go on stage for the changes and getting that final thing to get across the line, it is the most stressful, worst experience in the world because show business is the only industry that has true deadlines. If a sequence doesn't make it on stage, there's no way to undo that. There's no way to fix it. If a prop is due on stage, it absolutely has to be there at that time. And if it's not working or if something's changed half an hour before the show, that's not the show's problem. We still have to make sure it works and it gets there. So every single time that new prop's about to go on stage, you will see me a absolute stressed wreck backstage, making sure it's getting there across the line. But then seconds later, when it goes on stage and you're backstage and you get to hear the response and the thing, again, you suddenly hit the most amazing highs from it. I had a great experience at Blackpool Convention last year where one of my effects was used in the show as a bit of a surprise. And I was stood backstage and we'd had all sorts of difficult issues getting it onto the stage and getting it into the venue. First time it had been used, all these things. And it was exactly as stressful and panicky as all other new creations was. And I was stood backstage as the effect happened, and you got to hear 3,000 magicians absolutely lose their mind and cheer and whoop and applaud for it. And you're standing backstage, and when you hear that, that many people, you feel a wave of their energy hitting you. And I was backstage with my team at that point. We were all loving it. That's totally the moment. That's totally why you do it.
Wow. And I can tell how passionate you are as well. I every time I speak to you, the passion just comes out, which is amazing. Can we talk about a couple of the pieces that you have in your show? And your show, your space, your studio. And one of the things I want to talk about is that big blue box behind us there, because you told me a really interesting story at the Magic Circle convention, how that came to be. And it blew my mind as to how you ended up with the rights to this and that whole story. Obviously, anybody who's into magic will know that that is trigonometry, that a lot of people associate with Paul Daniels. Could you talk us through the story behind that prop?
It's a very, very long story. There are so many diversions, things. If any of your viewers ever see me in real life, ask me to tell you the full story, because there is even just discovering the story led to more stories and innovation there. But if we jump back in time to 1984, Paul Daniels is going into his first big contract renewal with the BBC. He'd just done 3 series of The Magic Show, and the BBC absolutely loved The Magic Show. Although it wasn't the highest rated show they did, there's a bit of a myth that he was a big Saturday night stalwart, and he never was. It was always a midweek show, but it would always do really good, solid numbers, like 8-9 million viewers. No matter when they put it on midweek, it would do that. And up until that point, the BBC had only been having 6 episodes a year from him, and they wanted him to go to doing 14 to 16 episodes a year, which was a massive step up in production. Paul didn't want to do that because actually he was making a fortune from his live performance stuff. This was a time when there were still summer seasons, there were big mega Christmas pantos. He was playing a 3,000 seat theatre twice daily for 6 months all through the summer, and then would then go and record the Magic Show in the autumn, and then go straight in and doing a big Christmas thing. And just he was making millions and millions from live shows. And the Magic Show would take about a week to create each episode. So going from 6 episodes to 14 or 16 episodes was going to mean literally losing millions of pounds worth of live gigs. He was not going to accept the contract. He was going to say, I'm just going to stick to doing the 6, this deal, that's what I want. But then a catalogue was sent to him from a big illusion builder in America, quite a famous one. And it was a first because it was the first illusions and stage magic catalog that didn't just have photos in it, it had full color photos of the props in it, and even some endorsements by quite big name American magicians for the early 80s. And suddenly Paul realized, well, hang on, I no longer have to worry about writing all this extra material, because look, here is this company who will literally have got these incredible illusions already invented, and here are photos of them. I can see what they look like. These famous magicians are endorsing this company and these props. This is going to be great. And so he ended up doing the deal with the BBC to switch to doing more episodes of the year, and started placing orders with this company for props, the stage props, illusions, everything. And one of the first illusions he bought from them was this thing. It was originally called Geometric by that company. He ordered it from the catalogue. It was incredibly expensive. He could have bought a brand new car for what he paid for this prop, and he bought it entirely off the back of seeing these photos of it and all these celebrity endorsements of how great this company was. This it was obviously pre-internet, so it was done by writing to them and sending checks and telexes back and forth. It's very complicated to order, very complicated to pay for. They went through all of that. He ordered this and several other items, and they started arriving late. They arrived so late to the point that this illusion was supposed to be in one of the first episodes of the series they were taping, and it actually arrived so late, it was one of the last things they taped.
Wow.
But they didn't, because they got this prop coming and they thought it was going to arrive and come off the shelf. They weren't too worried about it. They didn't think, let's get some other backup things in place. They're like, oh, this prop's coming, it'll arrive. And when it arrives, we'll just spend an afternoon going through the basics of it, and then we'll get it on stage. And Paul's a pro, he'll make it look good there. The prop arrived, they opened the case it arrived in, and the prop that was delivered was nothing like the photo in the catalogue and all the endorsements. It was, well, we now know it was literally a completely different prop. Various bits of research been done. We discovered that for the photos for the catalogue, this company built completely fake illusions. They built bases that they looked too thin to have an assistant in it. Because the base didn't have an assistant in it, they really had made the base this thin for the photos. They like the catalogue is just full of completely, I'll say staged artists' interpretations of what the illusions would look like. But Paul was fuming because he'd spent a lot of money on this prop. He thought he was getting this incredible deceptive illusion. And again, if you ever meet me in real life, I can show you photos from the catalogue. In the catalogue, it looks deceptive like this. The prop that was actually sent had just like, huge big black wedges on it. And you just looked at it and straight away you could see exactly where the girl was. And it was not in the slightest bit deceptive at all. But because they'd waited all through the filming and they got this prop and spent so much money on it, they had to use it. They had to tape it. So some emergency repairs were done by the BBC stage crew at that television centre, and they arrived, although by no means as deceptive as the photos he'd seen. They recorded it. They put it out on the magic show. You can still find videos of it on YouTube. Now I've told you that part of the story. If you watch Paul's performance of it and the patter he's doing there, you can hear that a lot of the arch comments he's making whilst performing it aren't actually jokes. They really are digs at him going, now we're putting a spike through here so that you can see she couldn't possibly be here. And that's because on the prop that was delivered to them, there wasn't a spike there. And that's actually exactly where she would be hiding.
Yeah.
He was so bitter about it and he'd so burnt by it, because not just the experience of being let down by a magic company, but because he'd also signed away literally millions of pounds worth of live ticket revenue on the basis of thinking he'd be able to just buy tricks, that he then spent the rest of his life constantly reinventing the prop to try and make it into the prop he thought he was getting in the first place. So every couple of years, he'd take the prop out, he'd stick it in the live show, he'd bring it back. He had his own workshop team, and they would take the prop apart and make modifications to it and rebuild it, constantly tweaking it to get it closer and closer to the illusion he thought he was going to buy. All the way through until 1995, he did this again on the show Secrets, the successor to the Magic Show. And there's a very iconic performance of this illusion on Secrets where you see him doing it. And he absolutely considered that the absolute zenith. At that point, he got the illusion looking like the illusion he thought he was buying all those years beforehand. I got to start working with Paul in 1998 and got quite close to him and used to have amazing, amazing discussions with him. And at that point, he thought he'd finished with the prop, but there were certain things that he'd always wanted to incorporate into it. And at that point, I just started doing the designing in the building. And I was able to make some suggestions to him for tweaks he could make to it to get it even closer to it. So he then made a few more tweaks to it there. He continued performing the illusion right up to the end of his life. He was doing it weeks before he died in the modified version. He had always said to me that when he was finished with the illusion, he wanted me to have it and wanted me to take my ideas and his improvements for it and tweak it all and make it into a prop that could be sold. After he died, Debbie was obviously in mourning for quite a long time, understandably. But then about a year afterwards, I was having a discussion with Debbie. She knew I'd been talking with Paul about all this time. We did an all-encompassing deal that meant I actually got to take possession of the actual illusion itself. So I own Paul's original geometric prop. I own all of his notes and details and markings and modifications from it there. And at that point, I got to take his original prop and then using all the incredible CNC and laser technology we have here to sit down and completely redesign it from scratch, incorporating every innovation he put into it, every technological innovation I could bring to it. And then with Debbie's full final approval and blessing, we created the version you see here, which is the definitive version of, we now call it trigonometry. That was the name that Paul always called it in the show, which is what he said was the greatest tubes and blade box ever created. And I have to agree. In this crazy box here, which has 12 spikes and 3 massive tubes go through it, not only is there one assistant hiding in there, but now you produce a second assistant out of it at the end as a kicker. So in that there, we can hide 2 girls.
That's ridiculous. Like ridiculous. Just ridiculous. And that is what I consider when it comes to illusions as kind of like a workhorse, in that you can do it 360. People can be looking from any angle. You can literally just wheel it on stage and do it. It doesn't require hours of setup and building and lighting and so on and so forth. When it comes to being a gigging illusionist, for anybody who's watching this that's not an illusionist, this is the ambitious card of the illusion show world.
Those are exactly the reasons why Paul fell in love with it in the catalogue photo originally, because he looked at it and saw it's incredibly deceptive and I could wheel it out and do it anywhere and it will be a thing. And yeah, what actually was delivered was not, and had terrible angles and was not deceptive and couldn't be wheeled out anywhere and had to be built up and had all these problems. So all of the things he was doing to refine it over the 10 years that he was playing with it was making it better angles, was making it so it could be done surrounded, was making it so that it didn't have any lighting requirements. And one of the reasons why it became his favorite illusion to perform in the end was firstly that he put all that work into it, but also then it meant that this was the illusion. When you booked him for a corporate, Paul would do chop cut, he would do some sort of card trick, and he would always end with this because he could take this anywhere in the world. And whether he was on a beer crate stage or the middle of a ballroom or an arena stage or a conference room with the best lighting in the world, the worst lighting in the world, audience 360, whatever, he could just wheel geometric out, trigonometry out, and just perform it. And it absolutely kills. Even when you're stood next to it, whether it's this version or even his original prop, stood next to it, you can't believe there's someone hidden inside there because he worked it and refined it and tweaked it and found just the best places to do it. And then I was able to incorporate so many technological things into it that he couldn't do. There is that I won't go into too much detail, but it looks like these are perfectly uniform shapes, a perfectly uniform circle, perfectly uniform triangle, perfect uniform square. On his prop, they are, but he worked out that if they were very slightly distorted, the deception would be even better. And there was never the technology to make those shapes. They are machined aluminium shapes. There was never the technology before to do that. Whereas here, where we can now laser cut and CNC things, we were able to incorporate things like that into the prop. So we've managed to take all the crazy things he wanted to put into it and smash technology into them, and then 10 years of R&D and playing with it and tweaking to do it. But yeah, it looks so simple. It looks like just a circle, just a triangle, just a square. They are not. And the other lines on it and the other shapes on it, everything on it looks so simple and plain. It's not. It's so weirdly slightly deformed and slightly twisted and slightly moved. But all of that makes it phenomenally deceptive.
It's incredible. Absolutely incredible. And what a wonderful way to honor Paul's legacy as well, that you can still get it's just great. It's just great. It's just, I love that story. Can I ask you about one more prop that has become iconic with your name? You know, a big buzz occurred in the industry like about a year or so ago when you announced flying, and your incredible innovative system to allow people to do the sort of thing that was only really done by David Copperfield in huge Las Vegas showrooms. And now you have developed this ability to be able to do this in, well, taking FISM, for example, a tent. Do you know, like, you can we talk about that for a minute? Like how you would even begin to put that system together? And, you know, every illusionist that I know of that I've spoken to, that, you know, they've said this is the biggest thing that's happened in the illusion world for so long. This is incredible. Like, how long did it take you to develop this? Can we hear the story about this? Would that be okay?
Of course. I mean, the answer is as always, is time. I've been playing around with the core technology of flying is 150-year-old technology. And actually, the principles used before that in many other things in theatre, just not for former flying. So that the technology is very old. I've made a few different levitation systems which use the technology over the years, but never really gone all out to make it a proper sort of off-the-shelf effect. A big theme park company came to me 4 years ago. They were creating a new show for one of their theme parks, and they wanted to put a flying into it, but it was an actor and dancer show. It was not a magician show, and so all illusions and things like that are actually incredibly uncomfortable to perform. You're always distorting your body in weird shapes, and magicians put up with that because they understand that's what magic is. But actors and dancers aren't prepared to put up with bruising themselves every show and twisting themselves into weird shapes. So they wanted to know if we could create a levitation system for them, but which would get through the various regulatory and legislative requirements for performer flying systems, and which was also comfortable and practical to use for non-magicians. They had seen variations of flying before, and that was their preference, but had we got anything else? Months and months of back and forth with them, and we eventually worked out that the wire, the array system, was going to be the best thing to do. So at that point, we had to just sit down and make it practical. And very quickly, I learned that making it practical means throwing away almost every bit of established technology in this sphere and starting from scratch. So we had to find a totally new type of wire to use for it. We worked with an incredible wire company. This is a Magician's podcast. We're using invisible thread. The invisible thread on my human levitation system, Wi-Fi, is 1/10 of 1 millimeter thick. And it's, for various practicality reasons, it's not a monofilament. It's not just a wire drawn singly. It is a proper woven wire. It has to be metal because synthetics don't actually meet up to fire safety standards. So that involved creating a wire 1/10 of a millimeter thick that is made up of thinner strands of wire woven together like a traditional rope. So we ended up finding this company who could make steel wires which are 1/6 of 1/10 of a millimeter thick, that they could then weave together to create the wire that is 1/10 of a millimeter thick, which forms the basis of the Wi-Fi system. That took months and months and months, and so much R&D, and working with that company and finding how they normally make steel wire ropes this sort of diameter, and finding out how their machines work and working with them to scale everything down so that they could then make this incredibly thin wire. And that's just the wire in this. Every single wire, it's multiple wires. Every single wire has to have its own independent shock absorber system on it, because if it ever gets touched when it's under tension, you're putting more weight on it, it could snap. How those wires connect to things, we had to invent a whole new technology for that, because all technologies for ropes and wires are based on much thicker stuff. So we had to invent a new connection system for that. We then went down to harnesses. We were looking at the harnesses that the performers would have to wear. And again, all magician harnesses are horrifically uncomfortable to wear, because you're a magician, you're going to wear it for 2 minutes, do the trick, you get the massive standing ovation, you get the adrenaline rush, you don't care that it hurts, whatever. Actors won't put up with that. We looked around at every magic harness technology that was out there, couldn't get anything that was anywhere near close and comfortable enough. Had a crazy thought for a moment, called some contacts I've got in the movie industry, and got put in touch with the guy who makes the harnesses, well known as the hero harnesses, for all the Marvel characters, all the Marvel movies. So when you see a big name actor in their skin-tight lycra costume flying, clearly on some wires or something, you don't see bulges and buckles from their harnesses or anything. There, this guy invented very, very flat harnesses which have incredible amounts of padding in it, because multi-millionaire Hollywood actors aren't going to have bits of metal digging into them for hours at a time. He invented that there are buckles and catches on it. He invented ultra-flat buckles and ultra-flat catches and harnesses. There are buckles on it which are only 2 millimeters thick. They're made out of all sorts of exotic metals and things there. But we went to him and said, this is what we need to do. We need a harness which connects here and here and can take this sort of weight load, but is also that slim form-fitting style that you've got, and has got to be comfortable for the actors. Worked with him for a couple of months. He ended up developing the harness we use for that. We had to come up with a whole new pulley system for moving things around, because normal pulleys designed for lifting things don't care about making things move smoothly. They don't care about very thin wires. So I had to deal with a company, a company here that are known for making pulleys for very precise engineering things. And we had to go to them and go, you know, those really precise, very smooth pulleys you make, can you make them even smaller and about 10 times smoother? And then working with them to go through their whole process to work out their things. Then literally every single part of this, we had to, there's some nuts and bolts in it which are off the shelf. Every other part of it, we have had to go to the manufacturers, the creators, get the best in category and work with them and literally help them reinvent some of their technology so that they could make the specialist parts we need for this. And then it all comes here. And then we then had to invent whole processes for dealing with it. In a workshop this size, dealing with wires that are 1/10 of a millimeter thick, you drop them on the floor here, they're gone completely. So we have to invent a whole loom system so that as when we're creating it and building it, everything's kept under tension and kept on holders and frames. Everything. It's just like every illusion we do, there is creativity in there, there's hardcore engineering in there, and there is also just a metric shit ton of time, just so much time going through and inventing it. So often we don't just invent a machine to make the thing, we often have to invent a machine to make the machine to make the prop. That's it. It's ridiculousness. That's what we do.
But it looks incredible. It looks incredible. It looks so good. Wow. I think you've probably got the best job in the world. Like, seriously. Although the most stressful as well, I can imagine. I want to ask you about one other prop, which is the one behind you right there, the suspended animation.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you 2 points about it. So first of all, it is probably my favorite sort of switchy placey type. That's probably not the technical term, but my favorite switchy placey prop. I absolutely love it. I've got 2 questions on it. The first is, that's actually not your design, as in that's not it's not your, you didn't create the original illusion, but you obviously are somebody who's been licensed to build it for people. And your name carries so much weight. I was speaking to, I think it was Tim Ellis at FISM, and he was talking about Harry Merlin Piper, and he went, he talked about Harry's act, and then he said, I'm not sure if that was a genuine suspended animation. I was like, well, Thomas More was helping Harry, and Tim went, oh, enough said. And so, I mean, it shows your the weight that your name carries. But two questions on that. One, how did you get to the point where you are building that for somebody else? And why would you do that over, you've got so much other stuff that you're building for other people? Like, it's not like you're short of illusions in your warehouse. And then final question on top of that is, can we talk a little bit about Harry Merlin Piper's act at FISM? Because I don't care, I've gone on record as saying this, that was the most magical thing I saw at the whole competition. Like, out of every single act, that one single moment was my favorite moment out of the whole competition. Bar none.
Yeah, so we'll start with suspended animation. It was invented by Australian illusionist John Taylor, who is a huge magic name in Australia and Asia. Still working to this day, still getting audiences of thousands for his shows. He created it originally just for himself with an Australian builder called Chris Murphy, who's a really great builder and a guy I've known forever and ever. I've also known John for 25 years. And when I say I've known John, I mean, like, I know him socially. We've been on holidays together. He's never actually really been a customer of mine. We've always just been friends. And he created this originally it was built by Chris Murphy. Chris Murphy couldn't build it internationally. It's quite difficult to ship things out of Australia. So they licensed it to a couple of American builders to make it. Over the years, those builders retired, stopped wanting to make it, that sort of thing. And John has always had the problem that he'd never been able to get anyone to make it in Europe. And it's so many illusions look like they're simple to make, but they actually involve a lot of quite specialist skills and quite specialist technology. And this more than any illusion has some there are some incredibly precise engineered machined parts inside that an uninformed person might think, oh, it's just a hinge. And it's like, no, it's a whole custom machined cantilever twisty thing. So he'd been trying for years to find someone in Europe to make it. He hadn't been able to. I'd never really wanted to make it just because I didn't think I had anything to particularly add to it. He'd been making them, selling them for 20 years. I thought he'd kind of worked out everything that needed to be worked out with it. But we got chatting 4 years ago about it, and he was still definitely trying to find someone in Europe to make them. He had got people in Europe who said, if there was one in Europe, we'll buy them. So at that point, we did the deal. We sat down, we discussed it, and we agreed that I would start making this. And although this looks like the standard masterpiece design, I did actually manage to make some tweaks and adjustments to it. A unique problem that European magicians have is the size that things pack down to. If you're working in America or in Asia, most stuff goes by road freight. You don't really care how small things pack down because road freight is really cheap. But in Europe, we tend to ship, all road freight in Europe is priced based on the volume that you're taking up. And actually, most freight in Europe goes by airplane, which again is priced by the volume. It's a very long-winded way of saying that in Europe, one of the most important things to do is create illusions that pack down as small as possible. And the standard version of suspended animation broke down into 3 flight cases, weighed about 400 kilos, and was a lot of stuff to transport. And I got to take this design and tweak this, and now that entire prop breaks down into 1 flight case. It's 1.4 meters by 80 centimeters by 50 centimeters. It weighs less than 100 kilos. And so I got to make tweaks and changes, adjustments that make all of this. The box on top is not solid. The box on top actually folds and hinges and very optimally packs down. Things slide inside things telescope, things move. So I got to make it my own by making it look exactly like John wants it to look. And he's very particular that it has to look a certain way. Ryan Reed did some of the artistic design on it, and Ryan Reed has, again, very understandably, very strong opinions that he wants it to look the way he wants it to look. But I managed to incorporate all that and create this incredible illusion that is, I mean, it's a guaranteed standing ovation. You put that in the show anywhere, you've got a standing ovation, no question. I got to get that, but make it actually practical for European performers.
That's amazing. That's fantastic. And I agree, packing flat is very important. And it looks brilliant, and it is probably my favorite illusion of all time. And you said that you struggled to add anything beyond the fat packing. And then at Italy, I saw this done in a way that I still don't understand how it was done. Like, for people that don't know this illusion, the one performer will be in the box. A cloth will be put on, their hand will go out so you can see their hand. It holds, the other performer stands to the side of it, just slightly to the side of it. There is a cloth on a rod, hand in the box holds one end, performer holds the other end, comes up, goes down. It's kind of like a sub-trunk switch. They change places, and then the cloth pulled off the box, and then they're in there. It's incredible. It's like amazing. But then my mind was blown at FISM. Can we talk about that?
Yes, we can. So just to emphasize, the key elements of suspended animation is that you always see the hand of the person in the box. It never goes away. It's always in view. And that the change happens incredibly fast. It happens at a Pendragon's kind of speed of the change. Yeah. The total time the main cloth is in play should be less than 5 seconds when you're doing it, which you would not even believe it's possible for 2 people to move that quickly, let alone do all the dirty work they have to do. So they're the iconic parts of it, and they're things that John is very keen to ensure that all performances have. Harry Melling-Piper was in the FISM Illusions category this year. They were putting together the act for that, and everyone thinks this was some grand plan that had been plotted out months, years in advance. This was a very last-minute thing. About a month before FISM, I got a call from Rodney Piper saying, Harry's in the contest. We're doing suspended animation. I already knew that because they'd already had some little tweaks for his version for that. We've had this crazy idea, but we don't really know how or if or can you or anything. Just like happens with every performer. They'd had a crazy discussion backstage. Harry had made some flippant comments, and Rodney had gone, that's a good idea, and they snowballed between themselves. So they got the sort of the rough basics of it, but no idea how to actually deliver it and make it actually happen and actually practical. So he gave me a call. We did a couple of Zoom meetings where they showed me the bits they got worked out and what they hadn't got worked out. They sent me some photos. A week later, I was out in Salou at his rehearsal facility with bags full of tools and materials and parts we'd made. And we then spent 4 days rehearsing only this trick. The rest of the act was routines he'd already been doing, so he was pretty comfortable with those. And when I say all day rehearsing, I mean, we were in there at 9:30 in the morning. We would spend the whole day rehearsing this, making modifications to it. Although his starts out as standard suspended animation, it's got a whole series of modifications on it just so that he could do the effect. But yeah, 9 in the morning, we would go right through till 6 in the evening. And then they were also running the House of Illusion shows every night. So then Harry and Rodney would then quickly go and get some food and then have to go do 2 House of Illusion shows that night, also performing suspended animation, but not the version we were rehearsing during the day. And then the next morning, come back and do it again. So incredibly intense period, all so that we could do the first ever completely displaced suspended animation. So we realized that as soon as Harry wheeled the prop out on stage, half the audience were going to know. They're all magicians. They're going to know what the trick is going to look like and what's about to happen. So the dream was always to completely defy expectations with it. So Harry wheels the prop out. He gets inside the prop. The cloth is pulled over the top in exactly the normal way. His hand goes through the hole in the front. The whole audience can see his hand. And at that point, his assistant notices that rather than the cloth being on the floor, the second cloth on the floor just in front of the prop, it's actually 4 meters over the other side of the stage. So she walks over to the other side of the stage, completely separate from the prop, completely open, empty stage. She then picks the cloth up off the floor and starts flicking it out in the way that if you watch any performance video of suspended animation, the assistant does. There's a certain way to flick that cloth out, and she does that, and she flicks that cloth out and then drops it. And in the middle of the stage there, Harry is now standing where she was, and he runs over to the other side of the stage where the prop is, where the hand's been on display all the time, pulls the cloth off, and she's inside. It was absolutely, it floored so many magicians because we lulled them into a false sense of security. They thought they knew exactly what was going to happen. We defeated them at every beat, and also it was a genuinely incredible magic moment because the method for it is so preposterous and so out there, and like all great illusions, so impractical and ridiculous. You would never in a million years actually think how it was done is how it was done.
But it looks so good. I literally did a double take when I saw it at FISM. It's just great. You know, congratulations to you and Harry and Rodney and everyone that put that together. It was one of the best moments of FISM. I really do think that. Amazing.
We actually had I had a suspended animation in the dealer hall as well. And after Harry's performance, we had 2 really big name European illusionists who've got suspended animations come over and ask about the possibility of licensing Harry's version of it, because yeah, it's so crazy and so defying that yeah. And full credit, Harry making a crazy comment and Rodney then making another crazy comment and just having the guts to then go, let's try this, and then putting the time and the effort in. They've got to have spent 50 or 60 hours rehearsing just that effect, and they can't do it in their venue. It's not something they're going to be able to use on a daily basis. So they put all that time and effort into creating one just crazy, ridiculous magic moment. And that's all stage magic. That's all illusions. Yeah,
that sums it up perfectly, really, doesn't it? So I've got one last question for you. This has been probably one of my favorite interviews of all time, Thomas. I've got one last question, which is, you've achieved so much. Like, you are so well known in this industry. The amount of huge names that call you when they need something done. My question is, do you have anything left on your magical bucket list that you want to achieve? It doesn't necessarily have to be in magic. It could be somewhere else. But do you have something you like, you know what, I want to try and do this? Because you talked about it. This is your dream space that you wanted to build your business in. You have access to the best technology. You work with the biggest names. You've achieved so much. Is there anything left?
Yes, it's a little bit of a curveball. It's not really making anything, because the whole point of this factory is anytime I have a crazy idea, we can just make it. So I don't sort of have to worry about one day I might be able to do this thing. It really is a case of one day I wake up in the morning and go, I wonder if I could do this. And by that afternoon, we're building it. So it's not actually in creating a prop. This sounds very pompous and pretentious, but it's actually elevating the status of stage magic in the UK. You would be amazed how different the perception and the availability of stage magic is in pretty much everywhere else in the world compared to the UK. We have a serious drought of stage magic, not just performers, but shows, everything there. And it's really weird because the market is out there. There are still lots of theatres that need shows and entertainment. There are still as many holiday camps and resorts that need. Just for some reason, we have lost a whole generation of magicians who want to go into doing stage magic. The work is there for them. The demand is there for it, but there are not the performers doing it. So my big passion project at the minute is doing everything I can to get more people in the UK into performing stage magic, because there is a shortage. And when I say there's a shortage, I mean, every year, there's 2 big agents that actually come to us and pay us to create a magic act for them for one of their magicians. They have found a magician who they really, really like, but who isn't an illusionist yet. And they are so short of illusion acts, they basically create an act for that magician and then put that magician out touring and working for them. That is how short we are of illusionists and stage magicians. Agencies are having to make them, which is completely the wrong way to be doing this. We should have people coming up through the ranks and becoming it organically. So I'm out there, I'm going to more conventions than ever. I'm very active in supporting the Young Magicians Club at the Magic Circle and helping them with their stage stuff. I don't do anything with their close-up stuff. I'm very clear, no close-up, but anything they're doing with stage performances at all, I'm there supporting them. We give their members props, we support their competitions, everything. And everywhere I go, every magician, every club, every society I go to now, I'm saying to them, you know, there is a serious shortage of stage magicians in this country, and the work is there. And if you know anyone who has the slightest interest and passion to getting into doing not just full illusions, but just big stage stuff, just stuff you can stand on stage and do for 400 or 500 people, I want to meet those people. I want to support them. I want to help them, because we could have some amazing, incredible stage and illusion performers in this country. We're currently letting them all just vanish, quite literally. And so, yeah, that's my passion project is let's get more people doing stage magic here, because the work is here, the need is here, the desire is here. And we used to have so many incredible UK stage magicians and illusionists, and they have quite literally been dying off at the top end, and we've not been feeding new ones in at the bottom.
Well, right. Like when I was getting into magic and I was 18, and getting into magic, my goal wasn't to buy a card trick. My goal was, oh, I really want that chair suspension. I really want that. And these days, a lot of the people I speak to on this channel, I speak to at conventions, it's all about close-up magic. It's all about close-up magic. And, you know, my son, he is all about stage magic. People like Harry Merlin Piper is as well. But it's few and far between. You're absolutely, I never thought about it like that, but you are 100% correct.
It's become a self-fueling problem because there aren't any younger stage magicians and illusionists in the UK that to inspire the next generation. The next generation don't even think that they could earn a living doing stage stuff. So it's one of the things where we have just got to get more people doing it, and as we get more people doing it, more people will do it, and then it will start to fuel itself. But I've realized that it takes someone like me going around and going, no, there is an incredible job, an incredible career working as a stage performer and illusionist. And it is a career and it is a job, and you can earn a really good living doing it. And if you start doing the international work, you can absolutely live the life of a rock star. You can get flown around the world, staying in 5-star resorts and hotels, and be, you know, mobbed by crowds after your show. You can have that whole experience. It's all there. Just Spain are knocking out hundreds of great stage and illusion performers. Italy are putting them out. Germany are putting them out. The Netherlands are putting them out. America are putting them out. All these other countries around the world are creating that generation, and they're then feeding into the entertainment networks. And for some reason in the UK, we're not. So yeah, we need to get more people in the UK doing big magic, because it's really good fun.
It is. And that answers another question I had for you, which is, I was kind of wondering, I see you at every convention. FISM, you're there. Blackpool, you're there. Magic Circle convention, which is really tiny, you're there. And it's like, why are you there? Like, most people that are at this convention are not going to need what you want. And the people that do need what you want, they already know you and have your personal phone number and can ring you up and just say, help. Like, I've always wondered why I see you there when you're probably so busy, got so many things on. That's the reason, right? You want to, yeah.
It's the outreach. I did a couple of things years back with the Young Magician Society at the Circle, and it was only then that it was Harry de Cruz pointed out to me that most of the kids in the YMS, they didn't even know that someone like me existed. Never mind, they didn't know who I was. They didn't even know that there were people who made illusions and big stuff there. And that point, it flagged up to me that, like, yeah, because we've not had high-profile stage performers, because it's been so out of the magic consciousness in the UK now for almost 20 years, there are whole generations who don't even know I exist, don't even know that this is a possibility of a career. So at that point, I decided that basically we have to get a presence at as many conventions as possible, because the only way I'm going to find the people that don't know I exist, the people that don't know that this is a career, is by going and meeting them at the places where they think is what magic is. So yeah, I am at so many weird conventions. It's here. We also do some across Europe. France is quite underrepresented in terms of young magicians, so I do a few there as well. And yeah, we just go to them. We lose money on every single one of them, straight up. You know, we make very few sales on the day. It costs a lot of money to go to a convention, not just the dealer pitch, all the hotels, the flights, everything else. When we went to FISM, I think we spent £9,000 going to FISM, just transporting the props out there and the hotels and everything else. The profit in illusions is not as much as you think it is. We'd have had to have sold about 12 illusions to have offset the cost of that, and not on the day. But by being there, we met new people. By going to the Circle convention, it costs a good chunk to come down and do that, and again, bring some big toys to show off to people. I lose money on that, but every single time I go to all of these smaller conventions, I know I'm inspiring people. I know I'm educating youngsters who, as I say, didn't even know that stage magic was a possible career. And we're just sort of reminding people that stage magic is a very, very lucrative part of magic. And there is a shortage. I can't stress this enough. There's such a shortage of UK stage performers. And yeah, it's my one-man crusade to try and bring some back.
Well, it's a very admirable thing to do. It really is. And I suppose, and I know this is not why you're doing it, but I suppose the other thing is by outreaching and getting young people into illusions, you're setting up your customer base for the future. Like, you're going to be the person they go to, because you know you're helping them understand that this is an actual career path for them, which is great.
There definitely is a little bit of that, because yes, I have a very expensive company to keep running. To get some context, running this, all the staff, the building, the logistics for this is about £500,000 a year. So we have to make £500,000 a year just to stand still. So yes, absolutely, I do need to invest in future customers. But also, it's just I went through a process for years thinking, why isn't someone else doing this, and someone else should be doing this. And then I realized that why aren't I doing it was the point. Then I have a few other mini passions about trying to get other things going, and I realized once I hit my 40s, I realized that I should stop asking who else is going to do this, because I am now the old guy. I am now the establishment, and so I should be the one trying to do it instead, rather than hoping that someone else was going to do it. So it genuinely is a passion. If this is going to make me money, it's not going to make me money for a good 10, 15 years, because you know the real ones I can influence and change are the teenagers and the 20-year-olds who are just starting a magic career. They're the ones who I'm sort of managing to turn over and get interested into going into stage stuff. But you don't just become a big stage performer overnight. You don't start buying things like this overnight. You've got to start working through those smaller gigs and building your stuff up. So yeah, if I do make money from this, it's a while off yet. Whatever you do, don't let my accountant hear me saying that, because he'll tell me to stop doing all of this straight away and to go back to just selling people expensive boxes, please.
You're an amazing guy, Thomas. Look, if anybody's watching this and they want to get in touch, either to get an elf, maybe they're already doing stage shows and they want a feature thing to do in their show that really kind of elevates it, or maybe they want to start doing illusions. They want to get an off-the-shelf illusion that they can pick up from you. Maybe it's they're developing a show and they need somebody to help consult on new props. Whatever the case may be, how can people get in touch with you?
The best place to get in touch is the website, weandwow.com. There's a contact form on there. I always get people asking me if they can DM me. We're on Instagram, we're on all the socials there. We always get people asking if they can contact and discuss things on those. And the answer to that is always no, because firstly, all of our social stuff is actually run by my office staff. And they're lovely people. None of them are magicians. So if you start DMing Insta and start asking technical stuff about illusions, Sherilyn will just look blank at it and then come ask me the question. But if you want to contact, if you're looking for an illusion off the shelf, or you want to sort of this, use the contact form on the website and send me your ideas. Get a dialogue going. This stuff is never about just buying a prop and that's it. Every single prop we sell is always a conversation, whether it's off the shelf, whether it's custom created. So message via the website, tell me what you're trying to achieve, tell me the kind of places you're performing, tell me the prop you're interested in. And we then are going to have 4 or 5 emails going back and forth where we discuss what you're trying to achieve and what is the best way to actually get it to happen. And then at the end of that, I'll tell you, this is the prop you need to buy. Or quite often I say, you don't need to buy this prop. Here is a better prop that would do it. Or you need to go buy this prop from someone else, or that. It's never about a hard sell. It's always about getting a dialogue going. And if you're going to get into stage magic and illusions, you need to understand right from the very start, it's about collaboration. It's about dialogue. It's about discussions. So from the very first time you reach out to me, start it as a conversation. Let's talk about your hopes, your dreams, your aspirations, what you're trying to achieve. Don't just send an email going, I want a soaring in half, please send invoice, because that's not how this industry works. That's not how you're going to be a good performer. We have often just not sold people who come in that cold. But anytime someone comes in and wants to have a conversation, wants to discuss things, yeah, we have a great time. They always end up with something amazing. We have a good time, and the whole magic world gets another performer doing great stuff with a great pop.
It's a win-win on every single level. This genuinely has been one of my favorite interviews of all time. I've been trying to nail you down for over a year, and I'm glad I've finally done it. You're the busiest man that I know. And I want to thank you for taking the time to do this, because I know you've probably got well, you just said you've got 5 full shows that you're in the middle of building. So thanks for taking the time to do this, Thomas. I am a huge fan of what you do. I'm a huge fan of all of your work. I'm a huge fan of you in general. And on behalf of the magic community and everyone who you've helped over the years, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And for anybody who's watching this, I want you to do me 2 things. Do me a favor. First of all, if you've got any interest in stage magic or illusions, speak to Thomas. Get in touch. Go on the website, We Add Wow. Go and check it out. You will thank me later, I guarantee it. Second of all, leave a comment down below and let Thomas know what you thought of the interview. I thought it's amazing. Very, very different to anything we've seen on Magic TV before, and a real sneak peek behind the curtain of how this side of the industry operates and runs, which is very different to the rest of the community. So yeah, Thomas, one more time, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. You're
Thanks for having me on.
No problem at all. Guys, I will see you again next Saturday with another Talk Magic. Until then, you have been watching Thomas Moore from Thomas Moore Creative. My name's Craig Petty. This is Magic TV, and we'll see you again next week.